I always say that I am a proud disabled woman because it's something that people don't hear often. It's a core part of who I am. It's a core part of my identity. I want to see more people with disabilities in the workforce. As a journalist, I'm thinking every story has a disability angle. We don't just belong in the lifestyle section. We shouldn't just be made into inspiration porn. We're talking about education, or health, or sports, police brutality. These are all things that affect the disability community. Ideally, it should be something that every reporter thinks about. Our worth as human beings shouldn't be based on how sick we are or how healthy we are. That should already be a given.
That's Wendy Lu, a proud disabled woman and a V-Teamer journalist with HuffPost. Her final quote there, our worth as human beings, that should just be a given. So true and so incredibly powerful. Hey everyone, welcome to Up to Speed. This week marked the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, known as the ADA. The ADA is the cornerstone of civil rights and human rights for the 61 million Americans living with disabilities. It's the first comprehensive legislation to protect equal rights and access for people with disabilities across all aspects of community life, including employment and public accommodations. So while this law was passed 30 years ago, we recognize there is much more that needs to be done. So today's conversation is twofold. We'll hear some of what we're doing as a company in the accessibility space and hear from some V-Teamers on their experiences and how you can get involved. I'm joined today by Larry Goldberg, Head of Accessibility at Verizon Media Group, and Krista Hinman, the Global Lead of Advance, one of our employee resource groups. So Larry, Krista, thanks so much for being here. Larry, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about how we are working to advance accessibility and inclusion for people with disabilities.
Well, we have a lot of work that we do on our products and services, inward facing, to make sure what we offer to our users is fully accessible. And we face outward. We have a lot of very interesting, unique projects about new and emerging technologies and where we're going next. In particular, virtual reality accessibility. We just wrapped up our second annual XR Access Symposium, and it was remarkable to see the work and the inclusion and the community that we've created around making this new and emerging technology accessible.
So I understand we've also been working with Getty on an exciting project that maybe some of the V-Team has heard about. Tell us a little bit about that.
We know in the field of accessibility and inclusion that representation is essential. Here we are, a company that's focused on media, and we reached out to Getty Images, one of the biggest stock houses in the world, and the National Disability Leadership Alliance to create what's called the Disability Collection. And it's images by and about people with disabilities that are real life. They represent people in their real environments. And we just launched a major new initiative called Behind the Lens, where a number of photographers were actually awarded grants to represent the community of people with disabilities in very authentic ways. And we're very proud of the Disability Collection.
I also understand, on the content front that Yahoo and In the Know have some exciting features and stories in the works. Tell us a little bit about that series.
Yeah, our editors put together a great curated collection of images and portraits, particularly of the ADA generation, younger folks who came up with the ADA. And that's now collected in Yahoo Life, with really great work, interviews and video portraits from In the Know, which is a very popular, well-used site for content all about people, products, and the next generation.
So one of the influencers featured in that series is Haben Girma, the first deaf-blind graduate of Harvard Law School. Take a look at her story.
My name is Haben Girma. I was the first deaf-blind student to graduate from Harvard Law School. How did I make it through Harvard Law School? I danced my way through law school. Literally, I was part of the ballroom dance team. When I was in college, I heard about so many new tech services coming out that would make life easier, like e-readers, electronic books, and a lot of those tech companies were ignoring disabled people. So I decided to become a lawyer. and help advocate for greater access online. So let's talk about the title of my book, Haben, the deaf-blind woman who conquered Harvard Law. So many people say, I overcame my disability, which is problematic. Disability is not the problem. The problem's ableism, the assumption that disabled people are inferior to non-disabled people. And one way I conquered ableism, I graduated from Harvard Law. I'm deaf-blind and access information best through Braille. I'm holding up a device with Braille at the bottom, and as people ask questions, I'm running my fingers over the dots, reading the questions, then responding back by voice. There are all kinds of hearing loss. My hearing loss is in the low frequencies. Consequently, I intuitively learned to speak at a higher register. There have been people who say, oh, you sound like a little girl. And when they say that, they're disrespecting women. We need to value all voices. The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed 30 years ago. 30 years later, there's still many things that are not accessible. I've been advocating for years. We need non-disabled people to start doing the work. During the pandemic, I've been texting and writing with friends, and then once a day, I've been going out for a walk with my guide dog. Many of the physical activities I love doing, dancing, paddle boarding, climbing, often involves other people. Maybe it's because I can't see TV and films that I feel really moved to be physically engaged. Many disabled people don't like being called inspiring. Inspiration, that word, is often used as a disguise for pity. Let's move away from that and instead move towards the original meaning. It's to feel moved to do something. If you feel inspired, make a commitment today to do one thing to make your community more accessible.
I loved her reminder of what inspiration really means, to feel moved to do something. As Larry mentioned, there are many more stories as part of this series that you can check out and learn more. So, Larry, as a final question for you, what are you most passionate about when it comes to accessibility, and what are you excited about when it comes to the work your team is doing?
Well, I am so impressed with this next generation coming out of college and entering our workforce. The ADA generation has accepted the notion of inclusion and diversity, embracing social justice, and it's just enhancing our workforce tremendously. And I just love the technologies we have. They're so empowering. At this point, there's just no reason why anything shouldn't be accessible to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. We have to apply it. So, Larry, thanks so much for taking the time to show us how we're starting to do that and the work we continue to do to move forward toward that goal. So, Krista, I'll turn over to you. So, Krista Hinman, you're the global lead of the Advance ERG. It is, Verizon's Dial, Verizon Media's neurodiversity ERGs that have come together to form Advance. So, let's start off. Tell us, what is Advance's mission?
Sure. So, Katie, ADVANCE stands for Advocates for Disability, Accessibility, Neurodiversity, and Caregiver Empowerment. And essentially what our ERG seeks to do is to create a more universally accessible workplace and world. And that's a world that we want to create for not just people with disabilities, but their caretakers, their friends, their family, and everyone, because we know that making things universally accessible is a benefit to society as a whole. For many of our members, the ADA is quite personal. So we asked our members, what does the ADA mean to you? And more importantly, what work is there still left to be done? So take a look.
This year we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The ADA is so important to me because it means people like my stepdad, who became disabled later in life, or people like my younger cousin who were born disabled, can not only be seen for those physical attributes that deem them disabled, but can be heard for the demands and desires to be treated equally and fairly under the law.
As someone with a parent who lives his life in a wheelchair, the ADA is important to me because it gives us the peace of mind that we can go to a restaurant or go to a movie theater and know that there'll be places we can all sit together, or a bathroom that's accessible. Simple activities that many of us take for granted. But that's not enough. Having a wheelchair ramp is a start, but if you have to maneuver through the kitchen or disrupt other patrons to get to your table, that can be uncomfortable. Accessibility needs to be about empathy and not just compliance.
People with disabilities should have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. I think inclusion in an organization is very important, and certain mechanisms should be used to protect equal opportunity.
People with disabilities who are classified as minority groups, we have a very different experience in society. People don't really understand that even within the disability community, there is a such thing as white privilege. People rarely talk about the intersection of race and disability, but it's very important and pertinent to the conversation behind the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Growing up, my mom was affected with disabilities in the workforce, and we didn't always have the resources for the best experience possible. So being a V-teamer here and a leader in the organization, I am determined to make sure that we have all the resources available so that we can all learn, listen, and advocate for one another.
I am most grateful for Section 504, which has helped my 3 sons over the years in school. It requires teachers and administration to work with us to make sure that our sons have been able to thrive.
Areas in which the ADA still needs to make improvements, in my opinion, is around health insurance. While employers do provide health insurance and cannot discriminate on the basis of disability, they are not required to provide insurance that covers medically necessary treatments for people with disabilities.
I have a 10-year-old son who is on the autism spectrum and he is nonverbal. I think ADA should protect parents and caregivers of children with disabilities, especially if they are minors. I can't tell you how many times I've had to talk to different employers and managers that I've worked with over the years to explain to them what it takes for me to be a professional and also an autism mom.
I was born in 1993, 3 years after the ADA was passed, and I have cerebral palsy. So I've never known a life in which I have not had disability rights. But I do know a life in which I've always had to compromise whenever I interact with the world to see if somewhere I'm traveling to is accessible.
We're still working on breaking institutional, physical, and social barriers that prevent people with disabilities from living their lives like others.
So I'm so excited to be a part of this fight where I can affect positive change for the disability community to help bring access to all. And I'm eager to see what we can do as we live in a digital age. How can we truly bring accessibility and access to everyone in such a time like now?
Thank you to those V-teamers for sharing their perspectives. We know that it can be difficult to be open, and we appreciate you taking the time to share your stories. So, Krista, we acknowledge, obviously, there is still work to be done when it comes to accessibility and inclusion. So how can V-teamers who want to learn more get more involved?
Great question, Katie. So I just want to take a second and acknowledge that while the ADA was definitely a landmark for civil rights for people with disabilities, as we just talked about, there's still a lot more work that remains to be done for people with disabilities to truly feel included. I also want to point out that the ADA still continues to come under attack, both legislative and politically, so getting involved right now is more important than ever. As we celebrate the ADA's 30th anniversary, we want to acknowledge that work that still remains to be done. And I'd like to personally invite all V-teamers to join us, to join Advance in helping to create equal rights and access for people with disabilities. And it starts, honestly, with education. This past week, we hosted a couple of powerful events that we would love to invite you to take some time and watch. The first is a segment called Real Talk, which included a discussion with Judith Heumann, who is an important part of getting the ADA passed and who was a critical piece to everything that we have and enjoy today with the ADA. So Judith is an American disability rights activist. She was joined by Mason Zaid, who's a Palestinian-American actress, comedian, and disability rights activist. So learn about the path toward disability inclusion.
We always have to acknowledge the overlap of the disability community with every other community. So when you talk about vulnerable communities, we are seeing that Black and brown people are dying more from COVID. But we also know that there's an overlap between disability and being Black, disability and facing police violence. 50% of all people killed by law enforcement are disabled. So I think it's really important as we navigate this conversation that we remember how inclusive the term disability is, whether it's race, economic class, LGBTQ LGBTQ plus community overlap, every single community you could think of, and always making sure that we include invisible disabilities and intellectual disabilities. Intellectual disabilities are too often left out of the conversation, and their opinion matters.
We also hosted an event for Black, Indigenous, and people of color that was a mental health panel. And finally, I would definitely like to invite you guys to take some time to watch a movie called Crip Camp. Crip Camp is a powerful documentary that's available for free on YouTube. It's also available on Netflix, and you get another chance to watch Judith Heumann and learn about all of the history of the ADA. Finally, I would again like to invite everybody who is a V-Teamer to join us, to join Advance. Advance is, as I said, an ERG that invites not just people with disabilities, but people who are our allies, people who are parents, who are caregivers. When you're a member of Advance, you can check out the resources that we offer to all of our members that include information about how to talk about disability, how to have a conversation amongst your peers, with your managers. And this October, we're super excited to be launching a disability toolkit and a disability 101 plan that will be available on the Learning Portal 2.0. You can find the links to all of the stuff that I mentioned above on Advance's VZ webpage. And finally, last but not least, please continue to work with the accessibility teams at Verizon and think about making the work that you do, any of the projects that you work on, accessible for all.
Krista, thank you so much for sharing all of the ways that V-Teamers can get involved, learn more, and keep those things at the forefront as we're working on our own projects day to day at work. So thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today and help us learn a little bit more. So a few things before we wrap it up for today. Our Pulse Plus survey is now open and continues through August 10th. Your feedback can help us see what we need to do to move from being a great company to a fantastic one. You should have received an email from our partners at Gallup. Please note the email was sent by Gallup, so it's got that external E in the subject line. Partnering with Gallup allows us to benchmark our progress against other industry leaders and evaluate where we need to improve to remain on the cutting edge. We want to be the best place there is to work anywhere, and we want our V-Teamers to not just do their job, but love their work. That's why we need to hear from all of you and have every V-Teamer participate. Now, speaking of loving their work, today we've also got the next feature in our My Why series. In honor of Verizon's 20th anniversary, we're spotlighting the Verizon journeys of 20 V-Teamers. Today's story is about Vanessa Houston, a solutions specialist in Austin, Texas, who, in the height of the pandemic, created the Made Up Morning Show, a live social media talk show featuring Verizon leaders talking about mentorship. Take a look.
My name is Vanessa Houston. I am a solutions specialist, and I have been with the company about 7 months. I am at the Great Hills location here in Austin, Texas. I love to read and I love to do things that challenge me, so running is the most recent thing. I owned my own small business as a cosmetologist, homeschooled my kids, and directed a school campus. What inspired me to join Verizon initially was everything that the company stood for, as well as tuition assistance, but also the opportunity to be part of a leadership team. What motivates me on a daily basis is employee experience and engagement, as well as customer experience day to day. I am the most proud of receiving the Purpose Coin a few months ago and creating a platform that just showed others how to connect and encourage through the Made Up Morning Show. I hope to achieve my master's, and I also hope to achieve being part of someone else's story and someone else's career path. I can draw and I can hand letter. What I want you to know is that this is a place where you are accepted, you are heard. We are a place that is agile and innovative. Something that Verizon is so good at is in the midst of challenges or changes. We have a great group of people that want to come out and say, hey, you're not alone, and there is a place here for you.
Thank Thanks, Vanessa, for sharing your story. For more V-Team profiles like Vanessa's, you can check out the My Hub pages on VZ Web and Inside Verizon. They also include some information on how you can submit yourself for consideration for an upcoming profile. Well, that will wrap it up for us today. Have a great day, everyone. Until next time, you're up to speed.